Hello, fools. This is Deidre Woollard, editor over at Millionacres. Today, I am here with William Sankey, who is the co-founder and chief executive officer of Northspyre, which is a cloud-based intelligence platform that uses data-driven insights to predict the effects of planned and unplanned changes on overall project costs and timelines in real estate. He's got a great background in commercial real estate, been a developer and project lead for big firms like Madison Realty Capital, Maclo Properties, and Jones Lang LaSalle. So welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Deidre.
Absolutely. So I feel like you were kind of ahead of the curve on using data to make decisions. Now, post-pandemic, everyone is kind of data obsessed. Do you feel like this is a permanent shift, or is this just because people couldn't get into buildings for the last year or so?
No, it's definitely a great insight and question. I really believe the pandemic has accelerated a shift that was already underway in the previous decade. I think at Northspyre, we've really been at the forefront and the front row of this rapid adoption of data-driven solutions as teams have really learned to navigate not only working in this remote world, but reinforcing their operations and gaining more certainty during like what has been a bit of a market upheaval, to say the least. So I think, in general, I think high-skilled, capital-intensive industries, if you think of some like aerospace, finance, advanced manufacturing, they've really been leveraging data, not to mention automation and AI for decades and many years. But they cracked the code on how to achieve predictable outcomes with high efficiency years ago. And I think those same principles are really easily applied to other industries. And I guess in our case, for real estate development. So I think, there's so much project and portfolio data flying around that goes uncategorized, unharnessed, maybe lives in convoluted spreadsheets on the back of people's head. I think all that data can be used to inform more proactive, faster decision-making, which is at the heart of delivering a project successfully. So, I agree with you, Deidre. I think we're at the start of, what we could call a sort of data mania. And I think there are so many ways that people are using data to drive efficiency. And I think at Northspyre, we really expect to continue to be at the forefront of leveraging data in that fashion.
Why do you think commercial real estate has been so slow to adopt these types of systems? Why are we so attached to our spreadsheets?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. It's a good observation, and I think one that other people in the industry and even outside of the industry, there's a report by McKinsey where they quote that something like retail and agriculture and other sort of industries have increased productivity by 1,500% over the past 50 years. And then when you turn and look at construction and real estate, productivity has barely increased at all. And I think part of it is because real estate projects are complex, but they're also unique in their own, every project is unique in its own fashion and way. And so I think that's made it very difficult in the past with older, more rigid technologies to layer that into what is sort of unique complexity, right? And I think today, technology like Northspyre, they're leveraging this sort of next wave of what I like to call augmented cloud 2.0 technologies. They're much more flexible. They're much more easy to use and to adopt and to deploy, right? Like you don't have to have a consultant come on and spend weeks and months and years sometimes trying to onboard a complex software that's, thought around every edge case for your specific company and built in a proprietary fashion. We're leveraging like these sort of advanced flexible technologies like automation, data analytics, artificial intelligence as the back end. And that just makes it very easy for teams that might otherwise be slow to get up to speed to do it in a matter of days instead of a matter of months and years. So I think that the sort of gracefulness of the new technology has made it easier to adopt. And I think the second thing is that people in real estate are smart, intelligent. They see it happening in other industries all around them. Bloomberg terminals existed in the 80s and 90s for finance, right? Even in the construction industry, you had a plethora of technologies around the late 2010s that sort of really have taken off and you have broad adoption. I think real estate owners, they see this and they see the opportunity, and the owners that have been, what would have been early adopters a few years ago, and now, it's sort of gone mainstream, this sort of adoption of technology in commercial real estate. They're really seeing higher returns. They're really seeing the benefits of these decisions to leverage technology 3 or 4 years ago, and they're talking to their peers in the industry. So I'm really optimistic about the uptake of technology in the commercial real estate space, especially around real estate development, where it's been really difficult and slow historically.
So we're starting to see commercial development pick up a little bit after 2020 when things were kind of paused. How is this cycle going to be different? Do you think that people are going to be using these real estate systems and technologies earlier on?
Yeah, I do agree with the sentiment that people are using it early on, and it's something that we see even across users that we talk to in our own customer base. So, I like to maintain, and it's something I've always maintained, is that pandemic or no pandemic, real estate is a very cyclical industry, impacted by all these macroeconomic, microeconomic influences, right? And so the savvy developer, savvy real estate team, they've always been prepared for the ups and downs and the unexpected things to happen. And they try to account for those risks by running various scenarios of how an outcome might play out. So they can be a bit more nimble. I think what we're seeing today is that teams, the one difference is maybe the nature of projects and the asset types have shifted a little bit. You have people may be moving away from the traditional concept of the old-fashioned, cubicle office, which is a trend already happening. But you see a lot of developers focusing on mixed use, residential anchor, and industrial last leg distribution centers. But you also see a focus on this sort of more nuanced workplaces for corporate campuses. The Googles of the world reinvesting. And a different idea of what it means to be an office, and then even life sciences. So I like to think that even as we settle into a new normal, and even in the post-vaccine phase, I think the ways that people, they live, they work, they sample, I like to say, the joys of life, they will probably be somewhat different. And development teams will be making faster decisions to accommodate that. And the smart ones are leveraging technology earlier and earlier in the cycle of their project. So whether that means sometimes even in the feasibility phase, all the way through the first tenants or buyers in a place. So that is something that we're seeing. And that's, I think, we've seen it in our existing customer base, but also in the fast growth and adoption of new customers that have come on board in the past year.
You mentioned life sciences, which is one of the areas that we've been focusing a lot on at Millionacres. It's just, we're watching so much attention and capital go there. Are you seeing a lot of conversions to life science? Or are you seeing more ground up development in that area?
I think the broader answer, right? And I think, I could sort of narrow in and say, in the past 6 months, that, you see a lot more life science and you do see a lot of starts, but a lot of development projects have these long multi-year timelines. And a lot of them people were thinking about doing it before the pandemic in a lot of ways. And I think, there's been a broader part of our economy that's sort of been taken on biotechnologies and health related industries. So I think, we're seeing it. We're seeing our customers that are doing more projects. I don't have stats to throw out to you, so I don't want to be too specific. But I could say, I'm sort of seeing a general sort of trend, and especially in markets where life sciences is a big thing, whether it's sort of Boston or places like Nashville. You're seeing that continued motion towards life science as a workspace that's not really impacted by the shifting. People that work in labs have to go to the lab.
Exactly.
I don't think there's a big change there in terms of the remote and hybrid work trends.
Very true. Let's talk a little bit about the rise in materials cost. I think I'm talking to everyone about lumber lately, but I know prices for steel are going up, prices for concrete. Is this temporary, or is this something that developers have to factor in? And does what you do kind of connect with that?
Yeah, no, definitely. At Northspyre, I like to think that our goal is to help teams see a little bit into the future, right? Maybe see a bit beyond the horizon. And I think developers always are trying to account for fluctuating material costs, whether it is, the industry today where you have lumber costs increasing in multiples, or even if you go back 4 or 5 years ago when there were steel tariffs put on steel from China, which caused a major spike in steel costs in the industry. I think it's something that developers try to factor into their projects, at least the savvy ones. Again, they try to have various scenarios of how they can finish the project successfully, even when things, underlying assumptions like material costs change. And so one of the ways people do that is, or do it more easily, is by using technology like Northspyre that allows you to run various scenarios or see worst case outcomes given certain adjustments and potential exposures to higher costs with things like lumber that we're seeing today. So, I do hope that as we reach the end of the pandemic, we really start to see prices normalize a bit. But I think in terms of just the industry in general, you always see certain materials escalate in costs. And I think that is something that the industry is it might be a brief slowdown as people reevaluate assumptions, but developers have a lot of ingenuity and they will find a way to build.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Let's talk a little bit about machine learning and AI. There hasn't been a ton of innovation in the real estate sector using machine learning yet, but there's so much potential in predicting outcomes and things like that. How does Northspyre factor that in?
Yeah, no, definitely. So at the core of what Northspyre is, we are
a technology and intelligence platform that enables modern real estate teams to get to easier, more predictable outcomes. And they do that by leveraging Northspire's technologies like automation, data analytics, as well as things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. So they do that in some way to replace what is today very manual, spreadsheet-driven processes or legacy softwares that require a lot of manual effort, a lot of data entry, a lot of manual uploads. And then the information is static, right? Maybe it's organized, but it's static. I think Northspyre is really transforming the way projects are delivered. And I think this is one of the first times, at least on the commercial development side of things, where you're seeing teams realize the importance of predictive analytics and technologies that in some ways can act as what I like to call like a digital project assistant. So I think it's absolutely the future. I know there's a debate sometimes, but I think it shouldn't be feared. I think this technology is really designed to complement what is deep expertise and human knowledge of project managers and senior leaders on real estate firms. So they have just more flexibility to focus on what is the strategic direction of their projects without the hassle of a lot of the tedious administrative work or deep dive time, roll up your sleeves analysis. Right. That's something that when you're using a technology like Northspyre, which can constantly comb through your project looking for actionable next steps, challenges, and opportunities, this tool really gives teams a leg up on their competitors. And you see companies that have started to adopt this technology, and especially ones that adopted it 2 or 3 years ago, they're really starting to get outsized returns and profits in the industry. And even more importantly, a lot of the large financial partners, whether it's construction lenders or real estate private equity firms, they are looking to partner and invest with developers who are using these technologies, right? It's becoming an expectation. So I see this as part of the future, artificial intelligence and partnership with human knowledge and expertise to get to just like smarter, faster decision-making and better outcomes.
I like that. Good point about traditional software in the construction industry and in real estate to some extent, kind of clunky, a little bit ugly. How important is making it pretty and using data visualization and things like that in what you do?
No, I'm really happy you asked that. My background is in architecture, so
I'm a few lives away now being in technology, but I think because of that, I've personally always had an eye for usability and good design. And I think that sort of shows through in our philosophy for Northspyre. And I think, I was saying a little earlier, like one of the difficult things about real estate development and real estate owners is, adoption of technology was slow in the past because one, it was just very hard. The learning curve was slow and long. And usually that's a usability issue. That is something that's really unique about a system like Northspyre, where you can get 90% of the value of an incredibly powerful platform, AI, data, automation, 90% of the value in less than 10 minutes of using the software. And we do that by making it very easy. There's a lot of complexity and difficult things going on in the background, but we sort of layer that with like not only a beautiful interface, but one that's sort of easy to understand, intelligible, and navigate. And you see teams, you even see people that may have described themselves as not tech savvy, which most people in the industry might. You see them saying, "Wow, this is the easiest tool that we've used," and I don't even know if we should call it implementation. We just sort of picked it up and started using it off the shelf. And I think that is, that's been the present of software in a lot of other industries, the sort of consumerization of design and ease of use. And I think now, especially with tools like Northspyre, that has now real estate owners, they have an opportunity for the same thing.
Well, and that brings me to another question, which I think a lot about, which is construction jobs, the aging of the construction worker, traditional construction workers, not really tech savvy. We've started to see iPads on job sites and things like that. How do you think that innovation is going to change how we build? Do you think the construction worker of the future is kind of computer first, hammer second?
Ooh, I like the way you put that, computer first, hammer second.
I do agree that I think innovation that exists today is really driving and forcing change in the industry. I think even as you've seen the more traditional commercial real estate space, they've been more traditional in the past. They are very aware that other industries are using modern technology solutions to drive productivity. It's, this is something that McKinsey observed several years ago. And I think, if you look at even within the industry, people see the more transactional side or the consumer facing sides of commercial real estate. And they're probably 5 to 8 years ahead in the adoption of smart technologies around things like amenities, brokerage, leasing, property management. But that's really only on the transactional side. Oftentimes, I think the bigger part of the real estate industry, what I like to say the bottom of the iceberg, is the creation of real estate. Those people that are creators building the real estate that makes up our cities. And so, I look at our customers and they are, in prospects we talk to, they're really hungry for modern, sophisticated solutions to help deliver projects effectively. Historically, they were a little jealous. They said even the construction teams, they had technologies like PlanGrid and iPads in the field over a decade ago now, but we're still using a convoluted spreadsheet. That's no longer the case. And so now you see teams that no longer have to rely on sort of gut-driven instincts or stale spreadsheets or 150 things in the back of their head. Now you have a machine in the background that's proactively doing a lot of the legwork and allowing you to make just like these smarter decisions. And so what we see, I think I can say this. I think it's not just like an early adopter mentality anymore. I think, if you go back when we were founded almost 4 years ago, you had the early adopters, but now it's really become mainstream where financial partners like lenders and investors, they just expect real estate teams to leverage technology. It's one of the few industries, if you think about it, where you could borrow $200 million from a bank and someone is going to try to manage that in a very convoluted error-prone spreadsheet that people are very aware has a lot of errors. And I think that's changing now. These technologies exist. This is becoming mainstream. And so the desire for innovation is not just there, but also the desire to adopt that innovation. So I'm excited to see the next couple of years as developers that aren't aware even become, sort of open their eyes to what exists in the market. And the ones that already have adopted, at Northspyre, we've facilitated over $20 billion of projects historically. You're going to see those firms leveraging that data looking forward, but also leveraging all the insights and institutional knowledge that now AI and a machine is organizing for you to get to just like better returns and profits and beating the market.
What do you see as the future of Northspyre? What are you looking for the business in the next couple of years?
That's a great question. And it's something, one is we see an opportunity to transform the way that modern real estate project teams deliver projects. So not only are their lives and their work, not only are their lives and the work they do, it becomes easier, but that they can mitigate risk proactively and get to just more predictability around outcomes. I think the bigger, broader picture is that Northspyre is actively continuing to work on building out new parts of our product. We continue to delight our customers. We want every single customer that's using Northspyre to be delighted, not just by the technology, but by the service we bring. And I think we're definitely up to some interesting things in the future. I think this is the beginning of the revolution and adoption of technology at the real estate owners level, and especially those that are delivering complex projects. And I think if you ask me that question a year from now, you're going to actually see some new products and some really fascinating, transformative things that will continue to revolutionize the industry.
Awesome. We'll have to circle back. One last question. You're in the prop tech space. You're in the heart of all of it. What do you think of what's happening right now with so much venture capital around? We've got the SPACs. We see new companies going public very quickly. What's your take as an insider on all of that?
In some ways, I think it's a great thing that this investment, whether it's venture capital or SPAC, that sort of fuels innovation. I think prop tech startups, a lot of them are in hyper growth mode right now. And they're always looking to find creative ways to secure more funding or an attractive exit for their investors and to reach their golden target. So I like to think it's definitely something to watch and keep an eye on. And, at Northspyre, though, we continue to grow really fast. It's something that we tend to be very focused on growing our platform, delighting our customers. And I like to keep you updated as things develop.
Awesome. Well, William, thank you so much for your time today. And you could check out northspyre.com. So that's north and then spyre.com. Stay well and stay invested.
Thank you, Deidre.